Come on. Hello there. Welcome to the KMS wrap-up show for July 8th, 2021. It was extra time. We got a bonus show today. It was very exciting. It was unexpected. Kirk announced it yesterday that we would be going live this morning. I thought it was a fun show. There was screaming back and forth. It was great. I am joined today by his name is Dave the Snake. After today, apparently his old boss told Kirk, "Don't trust him." I said I didn't trust him. Kirk said he didn't trust him. Just no one seems to trust Dave Cullinane.
You have a bullshit excuse for your reasoning. Yours is what? Don't trust anybody. You're the old Stone Cold Steve Austin, DTA.
My thing is Dave. Like you wouldn't get yourself in these sticky situations if you just didn't trust anyone. Like the whole thing with Kelleher.
Well, that's kind of my mentality on how I communicate with people, right? Like I don't have any preconceived notions, right? I'll talk to anybody. I don't judge anybody. I need to take that same approach, or maybe that's what's getting me in trouble. That's what's making me the snake I am. Apparently, I don't know. Maybe I need to start talking to less people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's you did seem very offended when Kirk asked me, "Do you trust Dave?" And I said no. You seem to really take that personally.
Well, because I think you're bullshitting, because I think you told the truth in that moment, and now you're saying don't trust anybody. Like I think you're making that up. I don't know. You can convince me otherwise, but I feel like
you're thinking I'm making up not trusting you, or you're thinking I'm making up don't trust anyone.
I think you're making up don't trust anybody. I think it was authentic when you said you don't trust me, which, yes, in all honesty, you said that and I was shocked.
Yes, I know. You can see it on your face. You're like, Jesus Christ. And then you say something about me sucking Kirk's dick or something like that. And Kirk just tells
you would admit that, right? You said you hated me purely on the basis
yes,
Kirk was giving me shit or I worked for Jerry or whatever. So, I mean, that is a fair comment, right?
Yes,
that you were.
It is very fair. Right. But I would say, I don't trust Mike. I don't trust many people in this thing. But like, it depends on like, what do you mean by trusting by? Like, I should know that if I'm talking to you about anything, it could be brought up for content, no matter what.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the show, and that's how we met through the show, right? And so it's Kirk's shows. I feel like our communication is primarily like almost like Kirk's property in a way, as weird as that sounds. So not that anything would ever be manipulative in any way, but if you had some kind of honest conversation you want to have, we know what can go on the show and not or whatever. But I honestly don't even see that coming up. That hasn't gotten there yet. I don't see it getting there in the future. So,
but there's been times where like I was talking to Mike about something and then he brought it up on the show or certain things, not anything like personal important, but like I just think it's commonplace where if you work for Kirk, things you bring up off the air are probably going to get brought on the air. I mean,
and you know it's not in a malicious way, right? Yeah. Like it's coming up and it's just a natural thing. It's a natural conversation to happen amongst people that work together and communicate often on a daily basis. So I think that's normal.
Do you trust me?
Do I trust you? Yes, I do. I honestly do. Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do. But that's not. So your thing is don't trust anybody, and I do trust everybody. So that's my problem.
Well, my thing is define trusting someone. So like when I say like, do I think you're like you're looking out for the show? Yes, I do. Do I think you're trying to do what's best for the show? Absolutely. Do I think you're trying to, somehow turn this into, I know some people are convinced that you're trying to use this as a stepping stool for Barstool. I don't believe that. There are a whole bunch of different ways you can define trust, but I think when it just comes down to the generic, do you trust Cullinane? I guess right now it would just be no, just from lack of working together. And, I don't want to be, I'm not quick to, I wouldn't want to say change opinions on someone, but I guess I
have been more than fair in, not that like I don't even mean it in that way, but like even our conversations, they're super collaborative. There's no like bossy, there's no bossy relationship. I always like warn you too about some of the stuff that we do is very like these tasks that aren't always like sexy in the content world, right? And I always say like you got to make sure you find what creative thing that you like and try new shit. It's like even the Gatsby thing. Like I would never give you shit on that because you tried something, right?
And even if
And it was a brilliant idea. Even if it fails, it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, you tried something, you had an idea, you executed the idea. Even if it falls on your face, you learned something from it, and you had a good time, probably, I assume. So
yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. I would just say, like, I don't know, I think it would be, ask me at the end of July. The next thing, do you just the generic thing, because if you ask like things by thing, like, do you trust Cullinane with this, do you trust Cullinane with this, it's all going to be yes, but the blanket of just I just have an issue.
very dramatic view. I think at the end of the day, too, I mean, you and I, our trust issues are never going to come up like this. The thing that really is insanity to me is him saying that Jerry Callahan called me a snake.
Yes.
And I can't even, I'm trying not to go into like insanity mode that I go into on the show. I hope the wrap up is a little more tame for me and I don't go off the deep end, but that is literally insane. Like, it is literally insane for Jerry to call me a snake. I've done nothing but try to help him. I understand that I made a poor, by the way, let me word this correctly, a poor recommendation, right? I don't hire people for Jerry Callahan. Mm-hmm. I made a poor recommendation, and that's that. Like, it's as simple as that. Every other aspect, I have been helpful. I've tried to help him grow his show. I want it to succeed. For him to call me a snake is bananas. Is bananas. Bananas.
Is crazy. And I will say, I think you've, from what I can tell, these past couple of weeks, it seems like you've gone above and beyond, what a normal producer would have done when they switched jobs with Jerry. I know Jerry isn't the most tech savvy person, so having someone who kind of knows what they're doing in the hiring process of a new producer is good. I truly don't blame you for what was his name? Producer Matt.
Dave, the first one. Dave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't blame you for that. I think, you just got God. I mean, it happens to everyone. People lie all the time. And, the only way you can kind of figure that out is through trial and error. So I think if Jerry somehow blames you for that, and if Jerry's telling Kirk don't trust you, I mean, that seems like an issue.
Yeah, I think the trust issue is now going to go the other way. I think Kirk I'm calling bullshit on this one. There's no way that Jerry Callahan called me a snake. I'm just it could not have played out like that. There's just no possibility. All right.
Do you believe that Jerry told Steve a couple of years ago, Kirk is crazy, do not work with this man, you're making the worst decision of your life?
I do, but as I said to Kirk today, I did not view it and maybe I had blinders on because I worked with Jerry right next to him or whatever. At least at the Legacy Club at the time, we were right next to each other. I believed that he worded that in kind of the playful ball busting way, but that I said this on the show. I said it time and time again. Jerry is obviously obsessed with all things conservative media. Like, he literally would probably blow the mailman who works at fucking Breitbart. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even, I said this to his face. That's what he holds at the highest value. And so him seeing the trajectory of Steve would obviously be like, he needs to keep following the Howie Carr path. Do you know what I mean? And no matter what, honestly, anybody, Steve could have asked him about any job. He could have said, fucking, you could host the, ABC News, the biggest platform in the world. If it's not Breitbart, he's going to say, don't do it. Like, so I didn't view it the same way Kirk did. I viewed it a little more as ball busty. And then I think, and then the other stuff of like, even just exposing the text, I didn't really love that aspect just between but whatever. It is what it is. I didn't think it was as serious in that moment as Kirk handled it. But listen, he's well, obviously Steve read the text. He can, they got to work that out, and Jerry would have to explain that. I'm just giving my take on what I think happened, but Jerry's the one who has to answer that. So
yeah, I think like the fact that it all took place behind scenes and it wasn't really brought up. Like, it's not like Jerry came on his show and was like, oh, Robinson's making the worst decision of his life. Like, these were just texts he sent to Steve behind the scenes, and I'm not sure Jerry ever thought they would be brought to light.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Jerry's really good friends with Howie. He really respects that media. He really respects that show, and he's probably just saying, like, wait it out, and you got an entire radio network at your disposal. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I took it, but whatever.
I will say, though, I've been looking. So Howie Carr broadcasts live on YouTube every day. Yes. And we do have more live viewers than the Howie Carr radio network on YouTube. Isn't that exciting?
That is very exciting. Yes.
Isn't that exciting?
How do people, by the way, because I know you monitored the chat to this, and the chat, let us know, how are you guys liking the live stream? Obviously, what are we? Today was the 4th show on YouTube live, right? Like I've watched a lot, and I'm not trying to like make excuses. Obviously, a lot of the tech shit that happened, I own that shit. But I was watching Lebitard's show on YouTube and stuff, and some of the shit that goes wrong, and he's got like $50 million in equity under his business. You know what I mean? It's like we talked about it this morning. Like every show, something's gonna go live with the live streaming aspect, and it's just you got to learn each time from it and keep trying to improve it. I thought today on the tech side was the best day for YouTube. I don't know, it didn't seem like there were any issues whatsoever today.
I agree.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
thank God John Featherston of all people thinks the audio sounded good today. If Featherston didn't think it was good, oh my God, I would have lost my shit.
Yes, I know. I saw he was critical of the audio in the past, but no, I think everything went well today. I do like the live aspect of it. I will say, so I see some people saying on Twitter like Justin's not quote unquote respecting the chat. I'm not entirely sure what they want me to do. If they want me to like chime in, kind of tap you on the shoulder to turn on my mic and say, hey, so Kirk 5K is saying that that Mike's looking a little sexy today, and I think the chat.
Well, that's it. We've talked about that, right? Like I don't think Kirk would want the chat, right? I don't remember in radio if he looked at the text line at WEEI that often. I don't know how he would do seeing that. I don't know. I love feeding off the chat. Like the chat takes me into like, if you think Kirk's saying something and I'm an asshole going off the deep end from what he says, like a chat room can literally rattle me in a second. And I love that shit. It can change the entire dynamic of the show. So I don't know, maybe that's something we just randomly introduce to him over time and say, I think I was telling you, like one of the platforms I use, you're able to separate the chat to take up your entire screen. So if like we could do that, so Kirk wasn't like forced to watch YouTube, he could just monitor the chat on one screen. That would be cool if he just like checked it out and read comments and see what happens. You know what I mean? Because you're always going to get ball busters in the chat. So he could go, he could get pissed in one moment just seeing one comment, see what happens. So
yeah, it was I know that you can like make comments like a separate window, but I think we'd have to figure it out with like dual screen monitors or something like that. But that's definitely something we will look into again. One quick thing before we get into the difference, the EEI being off the air and the whole like Minifans just got to stay away from K Marco is real quick. Is I think the first thing I said to you after the show today, it wasn't said on the show, but like me and you we got to get some form of chair in there for poor Harry.
Oh, it was the first thing we said when Kirk brought Harry in the other day, and I didn't even really pick up on it when he said on the show, like Harry's in the other office. I didn't really pick up on that. But we said that day. We were like, okay, if he's coming in here, we got to get a desk and chair.
We got to get something for this kid.
Yeah. And we got an Xbox in there for him, so we're hooking him up with that at least.
Yeah, we're gonna try to figure something out because I know as soon as the show ended and Kirk came in and was like, "Hey Harry," and then we heard him talk, but like, is he sitting on the floor again? Like,
I know we talked about this. I know we talked about this, and I really feel bad. I was hoping we could buy like a couple weeks before Harry came back in, and it'd be waiting for him. So I'm kind of like upset that we didn't. Yeah. Because now we're doing this. Kirk will watch this, and like now he's gonna know that we were already talking about that, but. Whatever, we'll figure it out for him for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sure something will come up. So, I would say the big news of the day, other than the Nichols situation and the Kelleher stuff, really was the Beyond Average podcast being kicked off of the pre-Sacco show, which is turning into, I will say, quite the pre-show. It seems like more people.
Well, though currently there's nothing there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the reason for them getting kicked off was one of the co-hosts, Mick, I believe it was, tweeted at K Marco to try to get his attention, saying something like, "Hey, I know you used to be a bartender. You can probably relate to this blog post," which I don't have a problem with if it's anyone else other than K Marco. Like, you got to know that if you want to be affiliated in the smallest way with the Kirk Minahan world, that K Marco is enemy numero uno. He's
yeah. But I also think, like I brought it up on the show, he did. I guess Mike was trying to say that Coley might have had the blog by that point. I guess there's got to be other ways around K Marco to pitch your blog. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be, whether you got to a talent and they could bring you to I don't know. I don't know. I do kind of feel bad because they were just looking for exposure, but you just went at the wrong guy.
I don't think necessarily when I see those tweets, I don't see it as them trying to get hired by Barstool. I see it more as like them just trying to get a retweet out of people they're tagging.
Yep.
So
That could be it. I mean, he was writing a blog post and trying to get that on the blog. I mean, either way, at the end of the day, he went and he reached out to somebody that obviously Kirk wants no part of in this world unless he's ripping his balls off and feeding it to him. So
yes,
he went toward the wrong guy, and you pay the price. At the end of the day, they were nice guys. We had lunch with them, right? And look what happened.
yeah, they were fine. I will say at one point I was talking to them about like just deleting old tweets because nothing good can ever come from old tweets.
Well, they said that on the podcast. I was telling you, and for some reason they stopped saying your name. It was like ja, and then all of a sudden the name cuts out or whatever. So apparently you were talking about deleting tweets with this kid.
I don't know. I said I deleted all my old tweets from like high school and middle school because nothing good can ever come from them from that.
Yeah.
But no, they should have taken my advice. But now it's good. I mean, we know that this is someone who knows if their loyalty. It sounds like they absolutely hate the Minifans, which I don't necessarily hate the idea of a show going up there that hates the Minifans. But I mean, you can't be playing buddy.
Trust me. He's like me in the sense like he tries to reply to every single comment that a Minifan. So even if it's hate, he loves every aspect of what's happening. So he can talk shit and say he hates them. He loves every single aspect of it. My thing today was like what VD did. Like that would, I mean, yes, you exposed the K Marco factor that like that gets you kicked out of Sacco. But at the end of the day, like VD didn't do. I mean, I'm not trying to. This isn't shitting on VD. Like that's basic. You know what I mean? Like that's not VD being like a badass. That's basic. VD's got a lot more in him than that. Let's put it that way. So that was nothing. If that dude doesn't understand that that's a normal day on Twitter for Minifans and hanging out and what they view this show as and collaborating and it's a hobby to them. They research different angles of it. Then he's just lost. Like he was just trying to use the show at the end of the day. So
yeah. So I will say it was kind of telling when you hear the audio from his podcast and he said that his end game was to get on the Kirk Minahan show once a month. I think that's that was like, okay, like let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Well, in fairness, all my third chair recommendations have not gone too far. So at least he was putting himself out there to potentially
have you submitted to Kirk yet that be the Beyond Average podcast that's in once a week?
I have not recommended that. I don't think that's gonna get out there, but we do. I'm telling you, we need more names to toss at him, but he doesn't like trying new people. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
So I'm interested in seeing what Friday brings if we're going with a similar approach to last week or what we plan on doing. But what is your idea or like what is your thoughts on the idea where if you had contact or have played footsie with an enemy in the past, just being like cut out of the Minifan world? Because me personally, I like the idea of just like cutting the shit and being like, hey, listen, if there's a certain group of people that they're trolls or whatever, you can interact with them, blah blah blah. But I like the idea of having a list of, hey, if this person who deliberately has tried to harm the show, whether it be, Martin Riesler, whether it be K Marco or someone, Shirley or someone of that. But if you're like playing footsie with them, then, you're out. Like
I would assume it depends on the action, right? Like if you're just like replying to a tweet and having like just a nonsense Twitter reply to something, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're asking that person for help and you're trying to collaborate with that person, I think that would be an entirely different beast. Or I think Kirk would look at that as an entirely different beast.
Yeah. And like, I mean, it all comes down to, it doesn't really matter what we think about it. It all comes down to if Kirk says for some reason, Michael Jordan isn't allowed on the YouTube channel, then Michael Jordan's not allowed on the YouTube channel. It all comes down to Kirk. And I do think, I did make a mistake in not asking him or you about the reading, but
but you did. But hey, listen, you had the right, because he did say like go to town on the YouTube. So it's just I think that probably was just a lesson in communication for all of us. Just like why not keep everybody in the loop? It's not like we have this monster team. You know what I mean? We're not alerting 20 people to some like big plan. So it's kind of like, hey, do you mind if I do this, or what do you think if I do that? And everybody being on it. That's normal to me. Which is another thing I could give you shit about. The fact of like when I have conversations with Kirk, if you're not on those conversations, I reach out to you and tell you about these things. I have no idea what you guys are planning for Sacco. I have legitimately no idea.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, like let's just say that like me and Kirk don't talk often enough where I think I should be texting you, hey, I talked with Kirk about
Yeah, but
this
I think
bit.
that's everybody, by the way. Like I don't think Kirk and I talk often enough. But if he tells me about an idea for the show, I'll reach out to you, or the next time I'm talking to you, I'll be like, oh, hey, by the way, he mentioned this.
But it also seems like, Kirk has had the opportunity to bring this idea to you, and he seems to be holding that back.
No,
So
don't turn this away from. No, that's Kirk,
so
though.
do you think if
You're
I
taking it
suddenly
away
was
from
like,
you.
hey, Kirk's trying to do this, he's trying to do this, it would suddenly be like, Kirk would be like, Justin, what the fuck are you doing telling people? I mean, not to bring this back around, but it all comes down to like, who do I trust? And it was kind of brought up today. It's like,
I don't know. I think that is more snaky than anything I have ever done personally. But I don't know. Listen, it was funny anyway. But it is. I assume at some point, if he's acting as if it's a big deal, I'm sure I'll be in the loop, and hopefully, all I wanted to do was offer up my assistance to help. But I'm glad either way that you are in the loop and know what's going on, because I wasn't at Saco last year, so I actually, to be honest with you, I have no fucking idea what he's talking about. Like legitimately no idea.
Yeah, we're just gonna get Mike really drunk again. That's pretty much the idea. So the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about, which I don't think it was brought up enough on the show today, they kind of poked fun at Greg Hill doing there, which is incredible when Kirk said like, this is my joke. They're doing my joke 3 years later. The country 93.7 is the fact that look at the difference in reaction on the internet. I know we're like more in the Minifan world, but look at the reaction between EEI being off the air for 2 hours and the KMS show starting 10 minutes late on YouTube. Yes. The reaction was complete solar opposites. And I don't think this is just like based is just in the Kirk Minahan show world. I think if 4 years ago, if the Kirk and Callahan show for some reason was not on for 2 hours and was not being broadcast, everyone would have been talking about it. And I think that just
no. I definitely agree there, because that show was such a monster. But that show right now, the Greg Hill show, like they don't truly actually engage with their audience online in any form. I think it's awkward where like radio's almost embarrassed to talk about that happening versus like it just kind of is what it is, right? Like I remember Kirk alerted us that he was going to be 15 minutes late or whatever, and I had already scheduled a tweet. You know what I mean? And I looked over at you and I'm like, fuck, I wish I didn't do that, because I care about, the listener's time, or people who are sitting there waiting and they're thinking something that turned out to be inaccurate. Like I wish I did that live instead of scheduled that out or whatever. These guys, like, they're so embarrassed on something that they can't even control. Like, to me, I would alert the audience and be like, just to let you know, this is a problem that's currently occurring for the show. Like, just a heads up before you get in the car. But they're like, I don't know, maybe there's like a radio thing that I completely missed. They're like so scared shitless to talk about that stuff or to react to it or to do anything. Whereas I'm thinking more about the fan and how inconvenienced they are. You know what I mean? So it's basically like, hey, 93.7's down, but if you live in this area, maybe you can catch it here. Like you'd want to give them some sort of information, whereas they just hide from it completely.
Yeah.
Until like a caller forces it. Like I saw the tweet that Kirk retweeted, and then I went and pulled up the stream. It never came up I was listening for an extra 30. It was like 30 minutes on the stream. Nothing came up until a caller was like, oh, hey, you're still down, but X. And then Greg Hill like bitched about it for 1 second. Do you know what I mean? Like they were forced into saying these things versus being proactive, that's just like a institutional radio issue where they're just like, they have no instinct on their own. They have to they wait for other people to start doing shit. I don't know. It's just very strange to me. It's all weird.
Yeah, I just think that was
the chat, by the way, you were monitoring it. Was the chat when we were a little bit late today, because we were late twice technically, right? We said 9:30 yesterday.
We said 9:30,
then we said 9:45, and then we still weren't till like 9:50. I assumed that people were giving us shit in the chat.
Yeah, people were rioting. They thought it was a big conspiracy. It was
tech issue or whatever. Cullinane fucked up, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of hashtag bring back Steve.
Yep.
Just
fair.
People just taking liberty with what they thought happened.
Yep.
But it was also brought on the show today. Steve has a new profile picture. Yes. I love it. I think it's great. I'm happy for him. He said he's in the wind, so no idea where he is right now. He could be in Montana, just living it out with his wife.
Steve he looks like, and I said this from day one, like I always thought the move with Kirk was a good thing for Steve from political radio, because I just think it like opened him, obviously, to Kirk's point today, like we learned all this different stuff about Steve, but like it wasn't just this like boxed in political takes. Like now, whether it's good or not, I don't know, but now like if Steve gets his own conservative radio show, like there is going to be aspects where he tries to fuck around, where like when he was with Howie, his next show, if he took over for Grace, he wouldn't have been fucking around in any capacity, because he learned from a person who doesn't fuck around in any capacity, right? Yeah. Like, or he learned from whatever. But now, like even the shirt, I was like, I mean, I probably know, we're not friends, but like I've known Steve a long time. Like the shirt he was wearing in the profile picture was like, I don't know. I guess now because the show, I view him a little differently than I used to. But like 8 years ago, the person who used to work in the same office with me was not wearing that fucking shirt that I saw in the profile picture. It definitely wasn't wearing the hat either. So he's definitely in the wind. I would sense that he's having a good time with it too. So that's all that matters. But.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of Steve, whether it's, it was mentioned, who knows if he has a role with the case going forward, or if he has a role. I could see him, calling in every now and then, or the show calling him just to check in, see what's up, especially.
He's definitely on the case season 2. Let's lock that in. Let's just put the odds out there.
You think so?
Lock it in. I didn't even get the conversation, was it a little jarring in the moment? Sure. Do I understand it? At the end of the day, you built that thing with Steve. But let's lock that in. Let's just assume that's
happening. You want to assume so?
Yes, and it's fine. My wife will be very upset, but I'll be fine with it.
So the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap things up here is, so you were taking some shit on Twitter from Murchison's Mouse and a couple other people because they were saying you were spiking parody songs.
Yes.
Now, the song that was played, it was, I forget the exact gist of it, but it was Piano Man by Billy Joel. Yep. It was very well produced, but I will say, like, the references and the things did seem a little dated. I think it really would have hit 2 years ago. I think right after the vigil, I think it would have been great. It did just seem kind of just a generic Cullinane song. Yep. Have you kind of noticed, now that you're like in the position of deciding what gets on the show, that people are more like, hey, we thought Cully was going to be this like all-encompassing, just putting out anything fan content to do on the show, but now like there has to be some sort of threshold.
Yeah, I think we put a lot of focus on the YouTube last week and promoting the YouTube and working on the YouTube, that we probably didn't do the best job kind of promoting that Minifan HQ that we have, where people can very easily submit their content there. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. I don't necessarily think it's about me. My thing today, I don't even think we got into it, but actually we did at some point. But like I always felt like if we were going to play like parody songs, I wouldn't want to just have one. I would want to have at least 2 of them, so we could go back to back. And so on the first show, we had that Steve's a Liar guy one, and it just ended up like having a life of its own, the conversation, and then the show ended. So I missed, from a timing perspective, playing that. I did have it. I did plan to bring it up. I just missed it. And then it just didn't come up really the next 2 shows, and we didn't have another one submitted because I didn't promote, or we didn't, however, I didn't promote submitting parody songs on the Minifan HQ. So I got to do a better job at telling people like how they can crowdsource content there, so people feel, because it is super easy to do. There's people that have submitted, at least that song that came today from Rock Opera, which
was excellent, by the way.
But he never he used to email parody songs, I assume. Yep. Like he never emailed or reached out and DM'd. He just went to Minifan HQ and did it. So it's clearly like an easy to use operation for people to do it. I just think we got to get that message out there, and then it'll start kind of ramping up and things like that. So it's I didn't take like the feedback of that as if like I wasn't being fan centric. I just thought Murchison Mouse was, I actually like explained to him exactly what I'm saying to you, and he still had a problem with it. And I can kind of get it because he wanted it in the first week because I was back and it was a Cullinane centric song, but it just didn't work. It just didn't work out. He had the explanation, so I don't know why he tweeted it, but it is what it is. It was fine. And we still tried to play it today. So
yeah, no, I mean, he has had great songs in the past. Some of them just, I mean, everyone strikes out with a couple of them, but I will say Rock Opera's song today was very, very funny. It was just, whenever there's those little hints when he's talking to like, it's like, why does this sound like shit? And then he said like, and Cully sounding like this and things like that. I think it was great. Yeah. It was, I wouldn't call it an all-time song, but it's nice to hear a different name thrown in the mix. I know he sent them in the past, but it's definitely good. And I keep meaning to bring this up on the main show, but I keep on forgetting. It keeps slipping my mind. Is that I want to promote that 5K that Kirk has signed up for in September on the show, and I actually was wanted to talk to you about kind of putting a link perhaps on Minifan HQ where people can just click on that to sign up. So
absolutely. When is that one again? I'm just blanking on the date.
September.
So we got some time.
Yeah, it's a little bit away, but I keep meaning to. I know it hasn't been mentioned on the main show, but so hopefully either Kirk hears this or we remember on Monday to bring it up. But I think that about does it for today. So anything else you want to say about?
No, I'm trying to think if anything else came up on the show that we missed that we could. Why don't we? I can tease. So I've been wishy-washy about this, so I apologize. But I wanted just because I didn't. We didn't know what I didn't know what there would be for content this week, and I wanted to get some other stuff out there. And so I want to do I was calling it a listen along, but people are giving me shit about Twitter Spaces. And so I'm trying to listen to people. If they think that's a dumb idea, I'll stream it live on YouTube and I'll do video on Twitter. But why do you want to just watch me sit there listening to something? You know what I mean? Like my thought was just give the audio, use it in an easy to use platform like Twitter Spaces where somebody can, I think I can unmute people so they can easily talk back. Yes. I've never used it before, but I hear, and I don't know. I'm not saying it's like the greatest platform in the world, but if I do stream it on YouTube or Twitter video wise, they have to literally call me on Google Voice. I feel like that would suck and nobody would call. Whereas Spaces, they might just chime in randomly. No.
Yeah. I think that Spaces really would seem like a better place for it where you can just kind of pop in, listen. Yep. I don't think there's a lot of visual aspect in re-listening to an old episode because I think for the most part, I mean, you could go 2-3 minutes without commenting on anything and just kind of sitting there.
Yep.
So I'd be interested in seeing how it works out. I mean, tomorrow can just be a trial run. I think once people realize that Twitter Spaces is actually very easy to use and it's actually perfect for things like this, it will definitely be something that is used.
We might want to use it to your point, we might want to use it in the future. We just got to try it once, see where it goes and go from there. Because I want those things too to be more, I guess you could call it like talk showy. Like, yes, we're going to listen, but if somebody wants me to stop and then they want to make a point about that episode or make a point about anything really, like I would rather just be kind of a call-in talk show just to make it interactive. I've always had a weird, I think the watch-alongs of the world are like, I get why people do them and they feel and sound like a good idea. And then you go watch them and you're like, this is boring as shit.
It's tough if you're not actively watching along. I know it, but if you just take it, like it looks so weird by itself because there would be like 5 minutes of you and me just staring at a screen.
Correct. Yeah. And and I've said this, and obviously we weren't on the show yet, but like what they just did for the Bruins playoffs or the whole NHL playoffs, what Chicklets did with Grinelli and Borelli did it for Barstool. Like that was the best one I've ever seen. I'm not just saying that to kiss their ass. Like they created storylines within that actual stream. Like they were between the two of them. So that worked out. But like I've watched like WWE, which is like a master of digital media. I've watched them do it. It's like boring as fuck. So it's like to think that me just sitting there, like listening to a show and people want to see the visual of that, it seems absurd to me. So I say let's just commit to that. Let's try Twitter Spaces tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to go with the Moroso voicemail because at least it keeps kind of the July 4th theme as well. Yep. You know what? I got Moroso's number, so I'll fucking call him in the morning show and see what he's doing today. I'll call Kirk. He won't answer. Mike said he might. You might be around whatever. So we'll see how it goes. So.
I will say, so after the show today, when I went to pull out, I hit a curb and I got a flat tire.
No!
I was changing a tire at Mike's house today, and I'm going there tomorrow to get a new tire. But
you didn't call? You did it that's man stuff right there. You didn't call AAA. You did it yourself.
I mean, I have AAA, but I was able to. I can put a donut on in a couple minutes. So it is what it is. But yeah. It was pretty loud, and the crash was like, Mike was like, "What the fuck did you just do?" So it was very, very insightful. But yeah, I think that about does it. Oh, the last thing, I keep saying the last thing. I know Kirk was talking about how there was, at the end of the show, he's like, I don't know if there's any Barstool drama he's missing out on. I think the only thing he might have been referencing was Dana Beer's promoting another drink.
Oh yeah, promoting the Rubinov.
Yeah, that was kind of going around in the. I know Portnoy talked about it and touched on it a little bit, and
I didn't. So I only saw like a couple of the tweets about it. Was that like real? You know what I mean? Like, are we to assume that nobody at Barstool is consuming any? Well, I guess they just don't want you taking a picture with it. Maybe.
I'm sure they just don't want you taking a picture on it on the 4th of July, saying, "Look what I just found."
Yeah,
and it's a direct competitor with probably one of the biggest sponsorships.
Yeah,
in the company.
I just don't know. Like, I almost figure, like, I remember in college, like Rubinov was our go-to because it was like, I don't know, $7 a handle or some shit like that. So I just figured that, like, that's more of a creative tweet in the sense of like, I'm showing you that, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's mocking the drinking. I'm not gonna say mocking drinking process, but like, look what I just found. I haven't had this in 10 years or whatever.
I know.
You know what I mean? As opposed to like a promoting of it. But either way, they always have a good time with that stuff. Even Witt had some good tweets going back at Dana. And I think the Pink Whitney account was like, good morning to everybody but Dana Beers today or whatever. Yes. So they have fun with that stuff.
I think that was great. Yeah. So that about does it. Thank you, Dave, for joining me. You didn't have to do this, but you did.
No, thanks for having me.
Trust meter went up a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
No, good.
Thank you for doing this. And thank you for everyone who's listening, watching, and we will talk to you on Monday.